just regular old maintenance, right? Trying to wrap up a bunch of end of season maintenance on the cultivator, and for you guys that actually want to see what it looks like so far, not a whole lot different, right? New shank. Now the reason I went through and put, was it like a duck-footed shovel on it, I think is what they call it. Kind of looks like a duck foot if you look at it just right, but on the ends, the reason I do that is because I don't exactly want a wider sweep on the outer ends, largely because, and it's not that big of a deal because of using guidance and straight lines and you're evenly spaced apart, but more so when we were doing it with the 6-row. But if your rows aren't exactly perfectly straight and your last pass is not exactly 30 inches apart like it should be, or your spacing from your last pass to your current pass isn't 30 inches apart, you run the risk of taking out the row that you just went through, or the next row over. So granted, it's not a lot, but it's much. Having a smaller shovel on it compared to the wider sweeps on the outside edges, I think actually helps reduce some of the cultivator blight you get. So that's why I do that. All this, I started to pull this off last night. I want this hose to actually, I can turn it right there coming out of the tank. I'm going to put this hose back up here. Going to remove a lot of this, spin this around so it's pointing straight back so I can just back up towards the tank, because didn't think it through when I mounted it like that. How I got to squeeze in between the tire and the tank to get it filled, but you know, learner's mistake. But I want to spin it around. I don't know if I'm even going to bother with this metal piece. I'll eliminate this altogether. I'll have to get a new shut off because this is junk. This was used when I got this whole, the tanks, the kit, whatever. It was used when I got it, and the shutoffs are just, they're shot. I do have an adapter for, you know, connecting to this strainer. I always called them filters, but they're called strainers. I'm gonna spin it all around and have this back on the frame. I did find a check valve, or what's a flipper valve. I can't remember the technical name of it. Actually, might just be a flip valve, but all it is it's just a low pressure flap. That if the problem I have with this is that when you're on the hills, product likes to transfer between the tanks, all right? But the problem is the pump is over there, so the pump generally pulls out of that tank before it pulls out of this tank. It generally pulls more out of that one than that one. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, the plan is I'm going to keep the fill line right here, so that way when I put that flip fitting valve in, it'll still allow the product, when I'm filling these tanks, to go to the other tank, but it's not going to allow the fertilizer from that tank to flow back to that one. Honestly, I'd rather it go that way and be done with it. Largely because what happens is, it doesn't happen a lot and it doesn't take a lot of time, but 5-10 minutes over the course of a day, or the course of just cultivating and applying your fertilizer. If you got to sit with this tank uphill, so it's transferring the product over to the other tank, that adds up. It really does. And I'd like to eliminate that rope and the hose that's hanging out over the end of the cultivator like that. And right here, I gotta look and like find the parts I need, but this is just a mess. I don't like it. If I eliminate here to here, people are looking for me. I'll get back to you. And since we were putting down nitrogen with the cultivator, which we never used to do, it's actually fairly new that we're doing it. We're changing out bearings, and the wheels on this cultivator are going out a bit more frequently than they used to. So I actually had a viewer, I'm not sure if he watches anymore, but he had a bunch of spare cultivator parts, and he actually brought me some filters for the 76, which is really nice of him. I'm actually still using up the parts he's brought up for the cultivator. So new bearing. Difference between a new bearing, you know, you can actually move it, and a used bearing, you can't even turn it. Now, in my defense, the last time I used this cultivator, all the wheels were turning. I'm pretty sure this is just a product from sitting since it was last used. So I got a spare now. Trying to decide if I'm going to go ahead and change it out, which I'm probably going to go ahead and change it out. The problem is these wheels, it's actually 4 pieces. You got the bearing, which you guys just saw. You got the 2 wheel pieces, which are the 2 rims. So you got one on each side that actually clamps onto the actual rubber. And I think it's pretty obvious what you guys see what my problem is. They like to do this. The rubber cracks, it ages, and it'll split. So then you're running down through the field with just the metal rim. And this is why I went through and changed out that spare already. Problem is, I'm just going to go ahead and change it out. That's going to give me a headache next time I go to use this thing. The rest of them are good. The bearing isn't bad, it's just loose in the set screw is cranked down all the way, and it's just loose in the bracket that it's mounted into. But what I was saying earlier, if I can remember everything I was saying earlier, is this is a mess. I don't like it. It actually leaks around this shutoff here. So the plan is, once I go through and switch all that around, I'm going to have a bunch of room with that hose to actually pull it this way. And ideally, I'm gonna keep this T in line, but I'm either gonna almost certainly just get another shutoff, come straight out from that T, and then go into the pump here. So I don't know what I was thinking. I probably wasn't thinking. Oh, actually, I know what I was thinking. It was in season when I was actually plumbing all this stuff up, and I wanted to go cultivate, so it was pretty much just slam it together as quick as I could, and now I'm dealing with the repercussions. I got it. Looks like I have everything I need. I mean, I do actually eliminate that. I can leave that rubber connector on. If I can move this whole piece over to somewhere in here, ideally, it'll still be away from this moving up and down. I mean, the hose, I can actually move it back a little bit yet. If I have that T just 6 or 7 inches over, have it come straight out into a shutoff, and then straight over into the pump. Simple. I want simple. Because when it comes to cultivating and being in season, when things break down, the simpler it is to fix, the less complex it is to have to tear things apart to fix it, the quicker you can get up and running back to what you were doing.